Hey everybody, welcome to the Hanger Deck. Wanted to do a video on seam filling or using putty, if you will. And so that's going to be this video. I use a fairly simple process. Some other people have used it. Maybe you've seen it on the internet, variations of it. Some guys use the plastic putty, or use a plastic putty, and then they use nail polish remover to smooth it down. And I've tried that, and it works. But what I do for myself now, I seem to prefer. So I'll show you some of the things that I use. Right now I'm using Vallejo's plastic putty, and as you can see, the bottle's pretty well used up, but it's got a little bit left in it, and we're gonna maybe finish it up today. I have these little cards, and this is actually a hotel key card that I cover in tape, and this makes a palette for paint or for putty or whatever, and then you can just pull the tape off when you get done. I've also in the past, and will again, use Perfect Putty. It is a deluxe materials brand, and it sometimes these will come with an applicator tube that comes out. I do not use the tube. I just take it right out like that. It seems to work better for me. So that's some of the things that I use, but I use them all essentially the same way. And then I also use these little sponges here. These are actually I have to honestly tell you, I'm not sure what they use them for, but you can buy them in the beauty supply places. There's a lot of really great modeling things at beauty supply places. There are different files or sanding boards for doing fingernails and all that stuff that really work great in modeling. So don't be afraid to venture in to one of those places and look for modeling tools. And actually, the ladies are very helpful. If you kind of give them an idea of what it is you're looking for, they'll try to help you. Because, a sale's a sale, whether it's to a guy that is a modeler or a gal, what have you. So anyway, let's get down to brass tacks here. So this is a Focke-Wulf TA-154, and it was a night fighter in World War II. And what our aim is today is to fill up this seam right here. You can kind of see it just a little bit. It's actually a really nice fit, so it's not going to take much to fill it up, but we're going to do it anyway. And yeah, that's what we're going to do. That's what we're going to do. All right, so I'm going to reposition the camera here a little bit. Hopefully we don't lose you. Okay, now you should be able to see what I'm going to do. So to start this ritual, the first thing we do is get a little putty down at the bottom of this jar, or the top of the jar, I should say. And we're going to squeeze a little bit out right there. That's probably about all I'll need. We can always get more if we need it. As you can see, it's about how much we have. Now we're going to take a little bit of water, a little bit of H2O, and we're just going to put a drop or two in a bowl. Right here. Don't use one of your wife's really nice bowls because she'll get mad at you. And we're going to pick up just a little bit of water on our brush here and just bring it over to our putty. Just makes it flow a little better. And then we're just going to start putting that putty right there on that seam. Now, sometimes what I'll do is I'll just put it at the front of the seam. Just kind of pile it up real good. And then we take our sponge, we get it a little bit wet. And this is the fun part. So here we go. We're going to come right in on top of that putty. and just draw it back. And it goes right into that seam. Just like that. Now, we're going to let that dry a little bit. There's some places that still need some attention, but we're going to switch over to the other side. Now this time, just for the fun of it, just because we can, actually I did that flap back there and that probably didn't need to be done. I may drag that out of that other seam, because in real life, that flap there would be a little gap there, and that's one thing you want to be careful of when you're filling seams, is you don't want to fill a seam that actually was supposed to be there. Now maybe you want to fill it up a little bit, but you don't want to fill it up to where it can't be seen, where you can't see the seam. There's a tongue twister for you. Okay, same process. We'll put a little water on our sponge. I use these sponges over and over again. So there's a wet side, which is that area right there, and then there's a dry side. Now you actually use both. So here we go. Now, the alternative to this, and I've used both, is just to apply the putty like so. Work it down into the seam, and then stop and let it dry, and then sand it off. And if that's the way you want to do it, that's great. There's no harm in doing it that way. The only thing I don't like about that is it takes a lot longer. But maybe by the time you do this a couple times, maybe it takes as long. So this time we're going to go this way and fill that seam in. So hopefully you can see right in there how that seam has been filled in. So run a little bit low on putty here, so we'll get us a little bit more as soon as I find my, there it is. Now just for the fun of it, this time we're not going to thin this out. We're just going to put it on there thick. Okay, now we'll take our little sponge here. I think I like that a little better. Now I'll tell you guys, I built models for a long time. When I was a kid, I built a model a week, just on average. Mostly aircraft. Sometimes I'd build a ship. Sometimes I'd build a car. Sometimes I'd build a dragster. And I never, ever used putty when I was a kid. And of course, putty was a lot different back then. Maybe I wouldn't have had as many brain cells as I do now. I don't know. You know, glue was bad enough. So we're just working that right into that seam. But when I got back into modeling this time, I decided that that was one of the things I wanted to do, was to bring into my skill set, was working with these seams. And I mentioned on a Facebook post, well, just exactly how do you use the putty? And a guy actually responded. He said, is this a serious question? Are you serious? You don't know how to use putty? And it kind of offended me a little bit, because, you know, yeah, it was a serious question. I wasn't trying to be silly. I wasn't trying to be funny. I'd never used it. And I guess maybe he'd always used it and was just a little bit surprised. But anyway, I try not to get that way. I try not to, you know, somebody asks a question, they have a legitimate reason for asking the question. Okay, I'm liking that. That's filling in pretty good. Of course, there wasn't a lot to fill in to begin with. So now I will show you something else here. Now I've got these dental picks here that I picked up from dental pick that I picked up. But what I'm going to do with that is I'm just going to drag or work that putty out of that one seam, or maybe I think I'm going to. Excuse me. Let's try my X-Acto blade here. Because I want to show that seam right there, because that's where that flap joins the fuselage. So we're saying there is going to be a gap there. All right. So I may do that one or two more times. And I probably won't do this underwing seam, just for the simple fact that it's underwing, and this isn't going to go into an IMPS or whatever it is, International Model, Plastic Model, IPMS. It's not going to go into one of those contests, so I'm not going to worry too much about that. I don't know. I've never went into one of those contests. Probably my modeling isn't good enough to win, so I won't worry about it. But this brush, I'm going to show you the last thing here. Kind of bring that brush back, get it cleaned up by just using a little alcohol on it. It dissolves that putty pretty good. So that's pretty much it from the hanger deck. I hope you learned something, a new technique that you can use. If you did, great. If you didn't, if you think I'm full of wild blueberries, hey, no problem. Just move along, and just, you know, that's my philosophy on doing these videos and learning about doing models from other people. There is a smorgasbord of information out there on YouTube and out there on the internet, and you take a little bit of information from here and you put it on your plate. You take a little bit of information from here and you put it on your plate, and by the time you get back to your table, you got a really nice meal. So that's my philosophy. All right, that is it from the hanger deck. I really appreciate you coming in today. Like and subscribe. Tell all your friends and neighbors. And when you leave the hanger deck today, I'd like for you to watch out for the prop arcs and beware the jet blast, and hurry back. All right, we'll talk to you later.